Hey, my name is Milo, and you're watching Toasted.
Milo, welcome to Amsterdam.
It's great to be here.
Hey, you have a new record out. Congratulations. Fantastic new album.
Thank you. Actually, this time I really took my time. It's for the first time that I worked on this album for almost 2 years, yeah, I can really say that I'm extremely proud of this album. I mean, I was always proud, but this is the very first time. This is my fourth studio album that I really feel this happy and this good about an album.
Hey, of course, I delved into your history and in your bio. You kind of fled Europe because you were tired of it all, or how should I see this?
No, it was more of an organic process where at the end of a long tour, and I mean, in a way, at the end of 2011, it was the end of a very busy period that started in 2009. I just felt like it was time for a break, and my intuition told me that it was probably a good idea for my music, for me on a personal level, to take some distance, to leave my comfort zone, and that brought me to LA. The city that I knew a little bit because I'd been there before. When I was 18, I lived in Southern California for a year. So in a way, it was a reconnection with my roots on a personal level, because of who I was when I was 18, with all my dreams and expectations about life and my music, but also reconnection with my musical roots. A lot of bands that really influenced me, not only from the US, but a lot of them were based in California at some point.
Hey, and it must have been something for you to get back to your basics. I mean, there you are in LA. Of course, you were really famous because, I mean, 65 million people saw your videos. I can imagine if you land in LA, suddenly you're no one. Or how does that work?
Yeah, of course. But again, let me point out that, I mean, there's more people that know one or more of my songs here in Europe than they actually know me as a performer. And this is something that might frustrate people that work with me, but actually makes me still very proud, because it means to me that it's not about me, but it's really about the songs and the music. So I really like that. Obviously, in the US and in LA, no one really knew my music, which I thought was actually quite refreshing, because it sort of reminded me of the early days for me when I was writing songs in my room, and sort of trying to write songs that would blow people's minds. And I was really I was really the underdog at that point. And in a way, for this new album, and by relocating to LA on a temporary basis, it was actually sort of back to that roots and back to that underdog position. And I just discovered that I'm at my best creatively, at my very best, if I'm in an underdog position. That's just how it works for me. And this is when I challenge myself and raise the bar, and really try to write songs that can change that. And that's how it works. And the good thing is that, of course, you could say, yeah, but at some point you can't put yourself in an underdog position anymore. But honestly, it's as simple as getting on a flight to somewhere where they don't know you, and the world is a big place, and there's 99% of the world still doesn't know me, so it's great. So that's good. I can still make a lot of albums.
And you decided to start playing with people musicians that you liked, and you jumped in their tour bus and you played a couple of gigs with them. I mean, that must have been like going back to your youth again.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the cool thing, is that I'm so flexible. So none of my musicians or my people from my crew, they were all still in Belgium doing their thing. So I was really, but because it was just me, I could. I did hang out with a lot of other singer-songwriters. I guess I missed a little bit, like, in the creative process, to being in a band. And although I never really had a successful band, I mean, I've been playing with musicians, but they're not really involved in the writing process. But I do remember when I was 18, when I had a band and we wrote songs together, I kind of missed that period. So in a way, I was trying to recreate that. And so I wrote a lot of songs with other people, singer-songwriters especially. because that for me that works better than it's just two equals in a room and we're just having fun and we're trying to write some songs as if we were in a band or like a project. And it was actually really nice. And then those gigs that I did, I think I played support act on 4 different tours, small tours, 2 or 3 weeks every time throughout the US.
Cool.
Pretty small venues, 200-300 people. But the great thing was that it felt like a vacation for me. I could just plug in my guitar, short sound check, and start the show by saying, my name is Milo, I'm going to play 30 minutes or, whatever, 40 minutes. And it's cool because right there and then I was the underdog again, and I could just, it was about the music, and there was no one, expecting me to play some singles that they knew from the radio because all songs were equal. And night after night, when I was writing these new songs, I sometimes played only new songs. And that was such a good test for those songs. I learned so much from doing that, especially because I was performing for an native English audience, and even more in the US than here maybe. It's really, people really, really, really pay attention, especially in those singer-songwriter venues where people like hanging on to every word you sing. So it needs to be good. Yeah,
well, you came up with some beautiful songs. One song that actually struck me lyrically is the last one, My Mother's House.
Mm-hmm.
That's really a song to listen to, and it's like a story. It develops. Is it about you actually?
Yeah, there's every single word is true. It's very autobiographical. In a way, it's on purpose that I put it on the last. It's the last track on Silver Linings. So I know that these days people having ADD, that they sometimes don't even get to the end of an album anymore. But for those who take the effort to sit down and listen to everything, there's My Mother's House, which is a very, very honest and personal song. It struck me. I wanted to, the great thing about music is that you can, in my head, of course, you can, by writing a song about a certain topic, you can sort of save it, for, the next decades or so. Even though, and then this is something like the house that I grew up in, which obviously has a lot of memories, good ones, bad ones. My mom's moving out, so it made me sit down and try to write a song about that house and about my mom. And that's a song, My Mother's House.
I think it's one of the best songs you ever wrote.
Thank you. That's nice to hear. It's also a song where when I play it solo, it's very dark. But by recording this in one single live take, the piano player Larry Goldings, he adds a lot of hope to those darker words, and so for me that sums up the album as well. There's some sadness, but there's also light at the end of the tunnel in the last verse in that song. Again, people need to listen to the songs to know what we're talking about, but yeah.
Well, that's why we're talking about them now, so they will check them out. Really a beautiful song. And I didn't know that your father actually passed away. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, this actually happened 6 years ago. So I wrote a few songs about it on the previous album, North and South, but it was still very fresh. So even though I thought I had very fresh perspective on things, not just on that personal thing, but also in general, I did realize the last 2 years that when I really took some distance, and that I wasn't seeing things as clear as I thought I was back then. It's just still too fresh. I think the song "You're Still Alive" in my head is the one song on this album that's about this. I've been very much intrigued by how we all think more than ever maybe that we can, decide how maybe we can shape our lives, like we have a sense of direction. We can sort of decide, we think we can make our lives or shape it in the way we want it to. But the truth is that although you can, influence a lot of things, there's a lot of other stuff that you have no control over. And for example, in that song "You're Still Alive" in my head, it's it's just about the fact. And again, the truth is sometimes crazier than fiction, but my dad lost his father when he was 50. My grandfather was 56 when he passed, and my dad was 26. And when I was 26, my dad passed at 53. So the truth is that men in my family don't get very old. And That's something that became very, painfully clear 6 years ago.
Does that scare you yourself, actually?
Honestly, and again, this is the title and the overall concept of the album, Silver Linings, Hope. For me, this is, this fact, isn't very promising for me, because even though I can try to be healthier than my father and my grandfather, or I can try to take different decisions, there's some things like DNA and stuff that you just, or, genes, you can't really control. And what it allows me to do, though, knowing this, that, I might not grow very old, is that I can fully embrace a life right now. And I'm very much living in the moment. So I do enjoy everything I do. Like I enjoyed my time off in LA to the fullest. You
called it a time off, right? Playing 50 gigs and recording an album, that's taking time off.
Yeah, that's how it feels to me. It's much more relaxing than being on tour. And even though I did play, I think 50 concerts, it was small, so didn't really feel like that I was being busy. I mean, again, in general, I feel privileged to be able to do what I do. I'm a musician. I make a living by playing a few songs. And then we talk about me telling you that I worked more than 2 years on 35 minutes of music. It's ridiculous in a way. But also, I mean, important to me, but you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to explain these things to people who are not working, in music, because, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, of course. But again, just to go back to what I was saying, like, it helps me to enjoy every day. And regret, that concept of regret is something that I think is the most horrible feeling you can get. So that's why I say yes to everything, and I embrace everything, and because I don't want to regret things later. So
let's talk about the album some more. By the way, I do hope that you get really old and you turn 98 and you think back and go like, I had it wrong.
Hey, me too, of course. But again, I'd rather live a shorter but full life with lots of excitement and adventures and highs and lows. Even I'm not really scared anymore of hitting lows, because it does make life more interesting. It's just part of it. So if I would ever be able to choose, but I won't, of course, but for the sake of the theory, if I would be able to choose between high peaks and deep low, I would always choose that over just a very steady life without surprises. And and by choosing to be in music and choosing this kind of life, with all the traveling and with all the positive surprises, but also with the disappointments, that's always part of what I do. I think it's the kind of life that there's no other way to have it. It's interesting to say, at least, but I love it. I mean, I get a lot of energy from being busy and from traveling and meeting great people everywhere. And this is definitely a dream come true. I mean, I can't say it enough. But
you're talking about meeting great people. You met a lot of people in order to produce this record. Kevin Augunas, how did you guys get together?
Kevin Augunas is someone actually I met before I was even looking for a producer. So it was because I finally had time, not only to go to the movies again, to read books. I was also catching up on albums that I and find the time to really listen to. And you start reading the credits, who's working on which albums, and there's one name that kept coming up, who was involved in albums, Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros, Lumineers, Gautier, Cold War Kids and stuff, and Kevin Augunas was just involved, sometimes as a label, sometimes as an engineer, sometimes as a co-producer, and so it just made me curious about him, and I met him one day, and he took over the Sound City studio, which is also kind of cool. And we started
I actually thought that the whole studio was defunct now.
I know, that's one of the
Dave Grohl stole the Neve, and then he left the studio. He made a
the truth is, the way Kevin told it to me was that he sold the Neve to Dave Grohl because he didn't want it, because it was too technically advanced, so he preferred to work with an older analog table. Honestly, it is a little bit strange that the movie about Sound City implies that the studio is gone, but it's not gone because it's actually up and running. And the only thing is that Kevin named it Fairfax. He fixed it up, and you can't just rent it anymore because it's part of, the albums that Kevin makes. But yeah, so we I wasn't even looking for a producer, but one thing led to another, and we're making music, and it was great to be able to have that creative place, Sound City, as a place to for a few months in a row, to sometimes a few days a week, to be writing songs there, to be recording, to be making music. And so that's sort of how we came along. And I mean, I've always been aware that the producer for me is important, but only for me, because I need someone to bounce my ideas off. I mean, I'm a solo artist, so I really do need someone to help me realize my vision. But at the same time, my audience has I think that my audience doesn't really give a shit about who is the producer, because it should be a good song, I mean, and that's the same thing. What I was aware, like the Sound City, those great musicians and the producer, like all of them have made terrible albums as well. There were terrible albums recorded in Sound City, and even those great musicians, they sometimes ended up playing on albums that weren't so great. But of course, everyone always mentions the classic albums at the studio, but so that's what I told myself, and it helped me to stay focused, because obviously I wanted to be, I wanted to make an album with those guys that would end up among their best, their good albums.
I think that you do have a point. This is an album. It's not about songs, not about one song. I think it's about an album. You wrote an album, and I think the sound of the album is amazing. There's a really cool atmosphere in there. It's really warm and honest, and it has a really good feel in it.
Well, thank you for noticing, because it's literally, I think it's the result of a long chain of consistent decisions, where from the process of writing the songs to recording them, it's very old school. So it's all the studio, Fairfax. It's all vintage equipment, recording equipment, but also the instruments. So, and we recorded on analog tape. We recorded live, so it was literally like 1, 2, 3, and we played it a few times. And this is like, most of these songs are second or third, or sometimes even first take. Even my vocals, that's something that I usually end up redoing at the end of the recording process. It's called overdubbing. Like at the end I do my vocals, but songs like Echoes in the Dark, You're Still Alive in my head, and many of the others, it's just one take. It's just the guide vocal. So it's the vocal that I sang when the band was recording, and I sang it as well. And we actually ended up using that. And it just, again, this is part of, we try to be consistent and just really trusting, the magic of the moment, and not really killing it by trying to get everything too perfect, or to keep it human, and so that it was breathing. And it's nice to hear that you feel that it's sounding warm, because that's I think a result of the way that we worked, and
I think it's a great result. Hey, you mentioned Echoes in the Dark, and I have to cut you a little short because we only have like 20 minutes to talk. I think Echoes in the Dark is a really cool song, a duet with Courtney Marie Andrews. Actually, I thought that would be the first single that you would issue, because it's such a cool song.
Yeah, I launched a video for that song already, like 2 months or a month ago, because I do agree with you that I think it's a standout track of this album. Yeah. There's a single. It's there's a lot of people, a lot of countries that they're working on my music, and there was sort of a consensus that We Must Be Crazy and Against the Tide would be the two lead singles. But I do hope that Echoes in the Dark can be a single. Maybe at the end of the summer or something. I'm so proud of this song, and it showcases and it introduces the incredible talent of Courtney Marie Andrews, who's only 23, who's working on her 5th studio album herself. She's so talented, and I really hope that I can convince her to come tour with me for a few months or for a year, and I'm working on it. But she's amazing, and this is clearly the duet of all the songs, but she's singing backing vocals on half of the album.
Another thing that struck me is you call yourself a singer-songwriter. I think you're way more than just a singer-songwriter. I love how you describe yourself on Twitter. I'm a singer-songwriter from the crumbling kingdom of Belgium.
Yeah. It's just, because again, the only people who read that, of course, on Twitter is people that are not so familiar with what I do and where I come from. And even though I've come to embrace sort of a pan-European background, I really feel, I strongly identify with continental Europe because it's what shaped me as a songwriter and as a person. But I'm definitely proud of my Belgian roots. And even though I'm not, nowadays, like these weeks, I'm let's say I sleep in my Belgian bed, like on average 3 nights a week, maybe. I'm always traveling and it's only going to get worse this year. So, but even, sometimes it helps you by, leaving home. It helps you to see it in perspective. And I'm proud of my Belgian roots. Of course, critical. I'm critical of my own country and definitely the attitudes, mentality that's sometimes in Belgium. But yeah, it's an interesting little country, and yeah, like I said, crumbling. There's a lot of tensions on different levels.
It brings back forth a lot of good musicians. We always say in Holland, like, how do they do it? How's possible? Oh, yeah? There are so many cool bands coming from Belgium.
Yeah, you can't deny that it's an excellent few years, for Belgian music, with the most spectacular examples, Stromae and Salassou, for example, who really did well here in Holland and in Europe. So yeah, it's hard because I do believe that creativity is a very individual expression. So it's hard to tie it to a country. Just like you guys now with Blauwtsen, for example. It's Blauwtsen, and he's doing really well in Belgium. Is he so good because he's Blauwtsen? Or Sigmund, I think is his name. Or is he so good because he's Dutch? You can never prove. People can argue one way or the other. And it's the same for musicians from Belgium. Sure, it definitely shaped us. The best thing I think about growing up as a musician in Belgium is that you get a wide, variation of different music styles. It's very eclectic. And but the worst thing about being Belgian is because you're Belgian, and because you're Belgian, you will have to work way harder than other artists to be noticed, definitely by the rest of Europe. But maybe that's good, it's not a bad thing to be with your back against the wall and to know that you'll have to work for it and really earn it, earn your audience and convince it.
Talking about earning it, you did this small tour, small 50 gigs in the States. Will you tour this album just like that in the States? Will you take your guitar, go over there, get a van and start playing? Because, this album is certainly, it's very Americana, I think.
True. And, just when you bring it up, it would definitely, it sounds appealing to me because I could. And I did put in some of the groundwork so that some cities I'm actually, if I play by myself, like cities like New York or Denver or some other cities, I can actually, get at least 150, 200 people to come to my show. So that's a start. But however, the way that I feel right now is that now I really want to focus on Europe and my schedule is filling up quickly. I don't know if there will be time for a US tour this year already.
So what holds in the near future for you? Touring?
Actually, I'm postponing the tour a little bit just because I want to do it differently than 3 years ago. So instead of touring the week after album release, I'm actually only going to start touring in June, the summer, and then my first headline tour in the fall.
Where will you play?
And I right now concerts are still coming in. The album is not out yet, so I'm sure lots will change as well when it's out. But right now there's concerts, Belgium, Holland. Belgium I'm playing Rockwerter. In Holland I'm playing Indian Summer Festival. I'm doing some German headline shows, and then Switzerland, Austria. There's more coming in. So, and I'm used to I surrendered the control of my schedule this year. This is how it is usually, you know, like lots of stuff. But it's exciting too. There's every day there can be like surprising news in my inbox. So in the fall it should be a European tour. So I'm definitely touring not just Amsterdam. What I did in 2011, I'm really keen on touring in several cities in Holland. So that's definitely coming up, and I hope to announce some dates soon.
Sweet. Looking forward to see you live. Again, it was way too short with lots more questions, but congratulations with your new album, man. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much, and maybe we'll continue our conversation next time in Amsterdam.
I'll definitely be there.
Cool.